So I'm delighted I was asked here by Dublin Credit Unions to discuss Christmas costs. So I know you're probably thinking, oh my God, it's too late. We're right in the middle of Christmas. There's nothing we can do. You can always start. And starting now, I'm preparing for next Christmas. And you're all going, what's she saying? But preparing for next Christmas is actually a really, really doable thing. You can clean up your costs and your spending for this Christmas, and then you can start to plan towards next Christmas. So the big thing about Christmas is Christmas spending is not the problem. Okay, so we all think, right, we have to spend, this, that, and the other. It's the unplanned spending that's the problem. Because I'm going to discuss with you tonight 3 different houses, what I call with your Christmas spending. And one of them we all know, and the other 2 we forget. And the other 2 are the ones that tend to give us the really bad hangover. What I call the January hangover, lasts the whole month because the bills are coming in, but these are the expenses that you have not planned for. You're not bad with money, and so a lot of people have the narrative, right? They're bad with money, they can't get ahead. The reason that they're always, struggling with spending is because they're bad at money. It's not that. What the problem is, it's on being unprepared and unplanned. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a talk. Before I pass you over to some of the ladies from the credit union to give you a bit more of a talk. But I'm just kind of going to talk through basics. What I do and what I teach is very basic, okay? I bring it back to the basic level. And it's amazing how many people are on very good salaries, but they still have no control in their spending because they're not budgeting and they're not planning. Awareness is power. So you become aware of your spending, how much is going in, how much is going out. People are always like, oh my God, it's Christmas. Christmas comes every year. So there is no big shocks here. It's not like suddenly my car has broken down or my oven has blown up. Christmas is going to come regardless of anything else. That year goes around and around, and you're guaranteed to have the same expense every single year. So the big thing about Christmas, and we're coming up to Black Fridays tomorrow, is the marketing. So we're being thrown at different offers, and you need this and you need that. And I think a big thing at the moment, because I know tomorrow is Black Friday, and then you have Cyber Monday, and you have all these things that were never used to be out, but they're all now. Companies are kind of gearing you up to spend. So if you take it down, a lot of the time, what you see as a deal isn't necessarily a deal. So if you go back and you check that same item in July, what price was it in July and what price was it coming up to Christmas or coming up to Black Friday and suddenly gone on sale. So make sure whatever you do buy, if you are buying in the sales, is something that is genuinely on sale, and you're buying with intent. You're not going out there and browsing and looking through the shelves and buying stuff just because you see it, because you're Christmas shopping, but you don't have a list. So I'm going to come to that in a few minutes. So you're here tonight on this lovely cold winter November night to learn about spending and to learn about Christmas costs. So if you're here, that means you care about your costs, you care about your family, and you care about having a good Christmas. A little bit about myself. So I'm Annmarie, aka Irish Budget Mammy. I'm probably known better for that. My spending journey started when I became a single parent. So that started when I went back to college. So I became a single parent. I have 3 children under the age of 7. There was a raging recession. I was just finished maternity leave. I couldn't get a job. My job was gone. So I was sending out applications to everything. I worked in childcare, and childcare was doing very bad because nobody was at work. So I sat back down and I said, right, where is the work? And I always had a thing about being a nurse. And my sister was a nurse, and she was flying, like she was working away. And I said, right, I'm going to go back to college and become a nurse. So I did. Before that, when I was married, money wasn't the same kind of obstacle to me because there was 2 of us. So I didn't have to rely on somebody else. Or I could rely on somebody else. When I became a single parent, it was just myself. And I remember that first year in college, and it was coming up to Christmas. And I think that was probably one of the hardest Christmases I had because all my money was going out between my Susie grant and my back to education allowance was all going out on the cost of going to college. And there was no double payments or anything at that time. It was back in the middle of the recession. And I remember I was actually going to drop out of college. And I remember I went to the chaplain who was in charge of the hardship fund. I'd never heard of this. And he literally helped me and give me money towards Christmas. And I said that year, I will never be in that same predicament again, where I was completely broke. It was a couple of weeks to Christmas. And I wasn't. What I did then was I joined the credit union. I had never been in the credit union. I joined the credit union and I started putting €10 by a week. Now, most of the months, at the end of the month, I still had to take the money back out, but I got into the habit of saving. And from there on, it was actually what I call a sinking fund now. It's a big expense that you have every single year. So from there on, I've always saved a little bit by every single Christmas. And I'm here kind of to relieve kind of the stress, because it's a huge, I'm a psychiatric nurse as well. So there's a huge amount of stress that comes with Christmas spending, keeping up with the Joneses, having your house Instagram ready. You're not on Instagram. I'm on Instagram and my house isn't beautiful. Actually, I asked one day what people like about my page and they said that I don't keep up with the trends. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that kind of thing. So I'm going to be looking at my notes a little bit here, but just to keep me on track, because I do have a tendency to wander. So everything is not, tonight is not about perfection. Tonight is about awareness and action. So now you're going to start to take action, not just for this Christmas, but the following Christmas and the Christmases that come after that. So you're not in a position where you're actually dreading Christmas, because when you have stress and everything else, you don't enjoy Christmas to the same extent as you would if you had no stress. Control, not chaos. Okay, so you might spend a load of money on a load of presents and a load of things. How many of those things are still going to be used by July? So you have to bring it back and you have to look at the basics. Everything I teach is very much what my grandmothers would have done. It's something that it's a talent, and it's an action that we've kind of lost across the way. So you're here because you're the chief of Christmas. I think most mothers are the chief of Christmas. We're the people that buy. We're the people that plan. We're the people that want to see the happy faces. So we're the average Irish family. So the CCPC said that last year in 2024, the average Irish family spent 1,777 on Christmas. Okay. But other figures say the typical family of 5 spends up to €2,373 when you're bringing in the costs of your food, your activities, your nights out, your clothes, your trips to Santa. They all add up, and they all need to be taken into your budget. The average European stat is €460.
Just to introduce myself as well, I'm Sarah Daly, and I'm working in Farmerstown Credit Union. Also part of the wider Dublin Credit Unions. And I also have Annmarie Kelly here with me from the Health Services and Staff Credit Union. You want to introduce yourself, Annmarie?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, as Sarah said, I am with the Health Services. I'm the lending manager with Health Services Staff Credit Union, but I'm listening to Annmarie with my own head on as well as my work head. Like her, I'm a huge fan of lists, particularly when it comes to Christmas present shopping. There's nothing like the buzz of ticking off a name on a list when you're in a shop, as well as, I guess, helping you be sensible. Annmarie is back in, is she?
I think so. Let me have a little look. Annmarie, I don't think your camera is going on. If you want to pop your camera on and your sound. Oh, maybe some issues with the internet, is it? Do you want to try again, Annmarie?
There we are.
There you are now.
I'm actually here in the middle of the sticks, and our internet does come and go, and actually the phone internet works better. Sorry about this.
No worries. You're back now.
So what I want to talk about now is what I call the Christmas money bucket. Okay, so you have 1, 2, 3. So you've got your gifts, And we all think about the gifts, and the gifts are the ones that we buy, and we have all prepared and everything ready for Christmas. But Christmas lasts longer than Christmas Day. And like we're all adults here, be nights out, be family events and all that kind of thing. So then you've got the two other houses, what I call it, food and hosting. So that's your shopping and all that extra stuff. And then your next is your experience extras. That's your nights out and all that kind of stuff. So most of us plan for Christmas gifts. We save up and we plan for Christmas gifts, but up to 40 to 50% of our spending actually goes in the other houses. So be it your fresh free-range turkey that's you're into, be it whatever nice dinner you have, that's what most of your spending goes on. Your nights out, if you're like me with 3 teenagers, there's always somebody to give an extra money to. And that they're the things that eat up our spending. Gifts, family, kids, colleagues. We do Secret Santa work. We don't do Secret Santa as a family because I think for me personally, I like the personal side of the thing. So let's see what everyone gets, everybody else. It can be quite decent. Santa, all that kind of stuff. So your food and your housing is your dinners, your drinks, your guests. If anybody calls over, the lots of sweets. Once upon a time, I used to stock up on the box of sweets and all that kind of stuff. I don't anymore. The teenagers, they eat everything. But I do put the money aside so that I have money to get them. And your experience and your extras. So you might think, right, okay, I don't go out, whatever. You probably do a Santa trip. You might want to go to a Christmas market. You might even want to buy anything, but it's just that experience of how you feel when you're at it. So most budgets are only for the gifts. I'm laughing. I'm looking up here because I'm on my phone. I see Black Friday, new lines. We're being banned back. So one of the tips on the site I always tell people is delete the shopping apps, okay, or do the 72-hour rule. So there's a big thing at the moment which you have to get in. It's Black Friday, deals are going to be gone. Do your 72-hour rule. What I mean by that is put it into the shopping basket and just leave it there. Leave it there for 72 hours. Come back to it and then see how you feel after 72 hours. I promise you, at least about 85% of the time, you're not going to want to buy that. Also, be careful on if you're having a Friday night, you finish work, having a glass of wine, you're sitting on the couch. Avoid that spending. I cleared €70,000 in credit cards and overdraft debts after I finished college, and I did that basically by deleting all the shopping apps, not signing up to the promotional emails or not reading the promotional emails. That was a big one for me. So I used to be sitting there and I used to find, especially when I was a single parent, I used to find on the nights when the kids were really small, I'd be sitting there and I'd be scrolling and then I'd start buying things that I didn't really need. And I ended up having to pay all that back because it's a credit card debt. So you need to sit down now tonight and decide what matters to your family at Christmas. Sit back and think about Christmas has gone past. Think, was it the gifts? Do they remember what iPhone that you bought them in 2020? Do they remember what gigantic gifts, toy set that you would have got them in 2007? Sit back and think what matters to your family. Is it the gifts or is it things like the memories, the films, the pajamas? I know people give out about the Christmas pajamas, but sometimes maybe a set of Christmas pajamas might make more memories than the newest Samsung, iPhone, or whatever the phones are. Because I'm a teenager, so all I think about is phones. That's all I hear about. But I don't fall into the trap of buying all the phones. Christmas is not ruined by spending less. Okay, so if you spend less, your Christmas is not ruined. Your Christmas is still going to be good once you provide memories and be present rather than presents. I that's a cliche and it's a bit cheesy, but it's one that I still live by. It's the presents. The presents makes more than the presents. So, like I said, Christmas is not ruined by stress. Christmas is ruined by stress, not spending. And so you need spending less. So you need to sit down and know that love doesn't cost anything less if you spend less. And even if you haven't started earlier this year, you still time to pull it in. you need to sit down and do your list. Okay, so I'm a massive fan of lists. I'm a massive fan of shopping lists. I do lists for everything, things I have to do. So I sit down and do the list. So I sit down and do a list. I have 4 children. I have 3 teenagers. And one thing I do is I sit down and write every single thing down, where I'm going to buy it, how much it's going to cost, what it is, and so on and so on. And then I go back, before I buy anything, I go back over that list. If that's gone above my budget, I sit down and go back over that list and say, is that really where I want to be spending the money right now? Have a limit in each person. People think I'm so mean doing this, but I do this to my teenagers. I always give them a limit. So like give them a credit card limit without have to pay any interest on it. I give them the limit. Now I usually go above the limit, but the reason I give them the limit is that I know that they're going to get something they really want, and any little extras I try and keep within the limit. Go local and secondhand. And I had there's a time I would never step foot in a secondhand shop until that Christmas, where I was standing in front of the hardship funds manager and asking him for money. That's when I actually said, right, okay. So I went to secondhand shops, and I got a lot of people leave brand new toys and different things into the shops. Also very good for books. Another thing is cut down on your subscriptions. This is one thing I was thinking about is, some people come to me and go, right, okay, I have a subscription for Netflix. I've got one for Disney. I've got one for Now TV. I've also got some other kind of streaming solution. Or I'm paying so much money for a huge Sky package, and I might watch one match every 2 weeks. Sit down and cut back. You only need one thing to watch and telly at one time. So if you decide, right, there's good programs on Netflix this Christmas, I'm gonna stream that. And then the next month you could go, right, okay, I'm going to do Disney this month. You don't have to do them all at one time. Weekly cash envelope, I would start it now. For your Christmas extras. Okay, so like I said, 40 to 50% of our spending is outside of gifts. So if you start putting by €20, €30, whatever it is, every single week from now until Christmas, when the Christmas day is over and then all the partying starts, as I call it, in my house with teenagers, when all that kind of starts, then you'll have that money there for anything. Or even if it's a really bad week and it's been raining all week, you have a little bit of extra there. You can go out and have something to eat. You can go and break that Christmas lull, as I say, between Christmas and New Year. You'll have a little bit of extra money. And say yes to experiences. So anything that you could do that's experiences. I know when my kids were small, and the teenagers now, so they just want things. They don't want time with me. But when they were smaller, I used to spend a lot. I used to source gifts. So I think I brought them to their first concert when they were still young enough to come with me. I brought them car racing. I brought them to all different things like that, rather than buying them a gift. And I quite openly, especially when they got over the age of 12, and you could talk about where Christmas is really coming from. I won't say too loud because I know there's ears all over the house, but I could talk to them and explain that this year we're doing experiences. And every single time, I remember one time was car racing, and the next Christmas I asked them what you want, and they said car racing. There was no hymns and haws about things or anything else like that. And delete comparison. Like I said, you're not on Instagram. And even if you are on Instagram, you don't need to be keeping up with Instagram. You don't need to be keeping up the Joneses. You don't need to be keeping up with the other children in school. You don't need anything like that. Your family is your family. And Christmas is a time to bring everybody together and do it your way in your house. Just because somebody down the road has spent 3,000 on gifts for one child doesn't mean you have to, and doesn't mean that you have to keep up with them. They'll remember the memories of the things that you do together far quicker than they'll ever remember the things that you got them. So I'm a little bit about loans. Okay, so I have had a Christmas loan before. I have had a Christmas loan with the credit union. It was one year when it was the first year I started working, and obviously I was paying back my debts and all that kind of thing. The thing I'm going to say about them is there's no shame. Okay, so I know when I started Instagram and suddenly found the debt-free community and all this kind of talk and all this kind of thing. That was great for a while. I became debt-free, but I didn't stay debt-free because life happens. Okay, so that's reality, and that's how life works. So I never have any judgment on anything else like that. But if you are going to do it, what you need to do is you make sure that you're able to afford what you're going to be paying back. But you need to be able to afford it as well as save for the next Christmas. I always say stay away from loan sharks, credit cards, because the interest is huge. Store cards, if you're buying everything now, you could be buying, I think I bought something, it was really small. I think it was about 50 euro, and it goes, do you want to do this in 3 payments? The lure is really attractive. And I know I was buying a present for one of my boys that's going to go to college next year. And straight away it came up. He actually goes to me, I said, pick it out, I buy it, get it up there on the screen. And he goes, do you want to pay it off in 3 monthly payments? I'm having, no, I do not. I said, I have the money here. He goes, yeah, but that'd be easier on you. And like, he's an 18-year-old, so that's his mind is taking that in, and that's what we're being fed. And as a parent, I think as well, it's really, really responsible to teach them how those things are not the best way to go about it. Another good, a borrowing is not a failure. The plan is already to pay it back, so it's in the bank. Okay, so that's a big one. So you must remember that as well. Just because you needed to borrow doesn't mean that you failed in any sense of the way. You're just preparing yourself ready for next year. I know Annmarie Kelly is going to do a lovely talk about the loans and how they work and all that kind of thing. So I leave that to her, but I'm just kind of talking about the mindset and that about it, because I know there's a lot of people feel shame, right? Okay, especially in the community that my Instagram is quite big on, is the debt-free community. There's a huge amount of shame about, like, I think somebody messaged me, I hope you became debt-free. And I was like, no, I didn't. But I'm really okay with that, because it's whatever I plan is planned and fitted into my life as I run along. So when you're sitting down to think about it, so you go, what amount can I borrow without hurting my income? And that's a really important one. So I think when I got the Christmas one, I think it was like 20 euro a fortnight or something like that. And for me, that was easy maths. What subscription did I have to take out to pay for that? And I'm going to go back to subscriptions. We sign up to so many things unknowingly all the time. Go through your bank statements. The system that I use for budgeting it's really simple, but it's really effective. What I always say to people is you pay yourself first. So always have an emergency fund. So what an emergency fund means is that you have money there for if your dishwasher breaks, if your oven breaks. I remember one Christmas, my oven, my washing machine, and my hob broke just before Christmas. Obviously, they were all put in at the same time when the house was built. So these things seem to have a way of kind of doing up. And I didn't have an emergency fund. It was quite bad, quite early on when I know I was actually still in college, so I didn't have an emergency fund. I didn't have any money to get me out of a hole. So what I always say to people, and it's something I started with when I started the credit union, was I started putting 10 euro by every single paycheck to put into my emergency fund. The other thing I always say to people is have sinking funds. So you know that Christmas is coming, you know your car tax is coming, you know your insurance is coming. Have your money set aside. Set aside a weekly amount. Every time you get paid, put a bit by. I keep all mine in the credit union as well. I don't have them in individual things, but I do track them so that I know what they're for. And then is your fixed expenses. So your fixed expenses you have to pay. So that could be your electricity. There are prices that you can't negotiate with. And then I always say for the cash spending, I do my shopping, my diesel and all that kind of thing. And then you save so that's the bulk of it. Okay. So that it's quite simple. It's very basic, but it actually works. How can you protect your January? But you can protect your January by planning your December better. So again, I'd stay away from the credit cards, loan sharks, payday loans and fixed loans, all that kind of thing that you can't pay back. I have a thing about fixed loans, and that's why I love the credit union, is because you can pay back your loan quicker than the length it's actually meant to be, because there's no breakage fees. A loan should always come second to a plan. Okay, so if you're preparing for next year and you need a loan this year, you have a plan for next year. So you're already preparing your plan. What I say is start January now, start in January and start putting by 10, 20 a week into your savings. So that you can avoid the January hangover. I don't know if anybody else has felt it, but the January hangover is when I done a poll today, and I think it was up to 38% of people say every year they have a January hangover from spending at Christmas. And I think something like 40 odd percent said that they've experienced it in the past. So it's really, really important to not avoid the January hangover, because I know a lot of people kind of go at Christmas, oh, I'll think about it in January. But there's a reason why January is so depressing. It's not just the weather. It's because we spent so much at Christmas and we're trying to recover and think how we're going to move forward.
I
Um,
think a lot of people as well get the pay, so your pay can
yeah,
be paid earlier, so you're waiting a longer time than in the January. So 100%, I think a lot of people do feel that.
I think as well is we haven't planned. So when we haven't planned, we get that early pay, and then we think, oh God, we're rich for like a short amount of time, but then we're struggling for the rest of the month. And if you take nothing else from this call tonight, please take it as your call to action. So that the mission tonight is simple. Write down your Christmas cost bucket list. So I want you to go home, or you're at home. I want you to sit down after this call, write down every person you have to buy for, every secret Santa that you might have at work, every, if you're buying a present for the postman, if you're buying a present for the teachers, whatever it is, write everything down. Sit down and do your Christmas food shopping list, okay? Because we all forget about that, and then it's a huge, big expense. Remember, the shops open the day after Christmas. A lot of the Ireland have a really big habit of going around with nearly 2 supermarket trolleys full to the brim of food, all different kind of foods that usually aren't. Sometimes they're not in the shops the rest of the year, so we think we have to buy everything, everything, everything. You don't. You can do your normal weekly shop, and I do it the week before, coming up to Christmas Day, because the shops reopen, and it's not like years ago. I think that came from years ago when the shops were like closed for like a long period after Christmas, and there was that kind of, you didn't know when the shop was going to open between Christmas and New Year. That day is gone. So you do not have to do the massive, massive shopping. Set down any activities you're going to do. Like I paid for Santa today, and I think it was 100 and something euro, and that was 2 adults and 1 child, and I've only 1 5-year-old that's going now. So it's, all those little things cost money. Plan in advance. If you're going to go to Christmas markets, plan in advance, and put the money aside, budget the money, and don't go blind in with a tapping card. Okay, I have a thing about the tapping on the card, because I know, even for myself, it's so easy for me to tap the phone or tap the card if I want to buy a drink. But if I had 50 euro in my purse and I had to physically give that to somebody and ask them to give me the change back, I'd be like devastated, going, oh my God, look at all that change. How, like, if I had kept the 50, how much longer would I have it for? So remember all those kind of things as well. Decide your saving plan for December. So save money now to start saving up for any activities or any nights out. Don't forget clothes. People forget about clothes as well. Clothes are something that people like to buy new for Christmas. If borrowing is needed, decide the amount and the payback before you take it. So know if you can afford it. If you can comfortably afford it and comfortably save, then it's okay to do. I'm going to hand you back over. I hope everybody enjoyed that and got some tips from it.
Thanks so much, Annmarie. I really found that helpful, and I think the secondhand piece as well. It's really something that a lot of people are doing this year, especially in like vintage, Depop like clothes. You nearly get better quality clothes when you buy secondhand, because the quality in a lot of like fast fashion places just isn't up to standard. So I think a lot of people will be behind you on that, buying secondhand this year.
I remember I bought somebody, I think they were designer cufflinks. Like I think they cost a fortune stuff. They're like 500 euro or something. And I bought them as a present and I got them in adverts for 120 euro. They were still in the box. And like that, I didn't have to say to the person I got them secondhand. They didn't know, because they're still in the box. And I was just like, oh my God, the gift you got. So yeah, and vintage brilliant. Yeah, there's so many different places to get good stuff now.
100%. And if anyone has any questions, you feel free to pop them in the comments. There's a little chat box in there, and we can answer them at the end. We'll be doing a little Q&A. But I will be passing you over to Annmarie Kelly now, who is the head of lending at the Health Services Staff Credit Union.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Annmarie. I'm taking off everything Annmarie is saying and going, absolutely yes, absolutely yes. I look on my mum as a home accountant. She made a penny go a mile, and she lived her life. If she was put in charge of a company, I think she would have done a wonderful job. And Irish mammies were particularly good at that. However, they didn't have to live with the constant bombardment of social media and buy this and you'll feel better. And like you say, the drinking click is dangerous. But I guess from the credit union's perspective, credit unions all operate different approaches, different, if you like, rules and relation to lending. But I think I can safely say that at this point, it is not too late if someone needs to get help from the credit union. I would say if you leave it to Christmas week, we still take loan applications on Christmas Eve. We still get people coming to us for last minute panic. I guess from a to be sensible and prudent about it, if you're going to borrow for Christmas, you really should look at having it repaid within the year, so that when it comes to Christmas next year, you've got a clean slate as such. It isn't easy. As Annmarie is saying, it's not easy to pay back a loan and save. Like I said, the experts say we should all have a rainy day fund. I think it's about a month's salary. That's really difficult for people as well, because as you say, Annmarie, life happens. And we talk about, our underwriting approach and work to putting our credit union hats on if people are in trouble. And I would say pretty much all credit unions do this. So if people are in difficulty, your boiler goes, your fridge freezer, your cooker, emergency car repairs, credit unions will, to the best of their ability, help with that. We operate a Christmas savings club or savings account for members. I would imagine a lot of credit unions would do that too. That is very popular. It is an account that can be accessed at any time during the year. Again, I would say most credit unions would operate that. But it then goes out, about 2 weeks ago, there's an automatic transfer into your bank account of the contents of your Christmas savings club. So the money goes out to you. You don't have to contact us to do it. Like again, Annmarie was saying, if you do need to borrow, look to your local credit union first. By and large, we would be the cheapest place to borrow, but also there's really good flexibility in terms of no breakage fee. If you want to pay extra any 1 month, any 1 week, if you want to pay it off, you don't pay any more interest than whatever is due on the day you come in to do that. I would say, if you are a disciplined person, a credit card is very handy when you're shopping for certain items, provided you have a plan to pay it off the following month. And that's the tricky part with that. We are seeing people going to the short term, like as I call it, the hairdryer and DID credit. When did that ever happen? That we are encouraging people to borrow to buy. It's different if you're going to do that if somebody's buying a fridge freezer or whatever. It's an expensive way to do it, but you can somewhat understand that. But if you're offering somebody short-term credit to buy a hairdryer or a radio, or I'm just trying to think of small, and we are seeing it on members' bank statements. We are seeing small payments to Klarna. You may or may not have heard of Klarna, to Home. So you go to the Australian ad guy just won't come to me at the moment, Harvey Norman. And you might go in to buy something relatively small and they will push that on you. And we are seeing people with 4, 5 and 6 of these payments going out. When you total the money together, we could have given that loan at much cheaper interest rates, smaller repayments. So that's a frustrating thing. So, it is very tempting for people to do that. And it's in our faces all the time, which is why, the sort of discipline, Annmarie, you're talking about is really good if we can steel ourselves for it. But like you say, I always think, just after Christmas, early January is the great time to sort your financial head and your head out for the coming year. And the reality is, with families, you can't, it's very hard to save for everything and not need to borrow. But I would say to people, if you are going to do that, watch the term of what you're borrowing, so you don't get yourself into this, you're still paying back a Christmas loan from 2 years ago on top of something else. I don't know if there's anything else anybody wants to ask me, but
I think we had a couple of questions from Instagram earlier. There was one just on, do you have to be saving previously with the credit union in order to take out a loan, or have some shares maybe?
Okay, so again, that would depend on the credit union, but generally speaking, most credit unions have moved away from the need to be saving. So they will look for a lodgement to be made. I would, however, say if your credit union is going to offer you a loan to do that, if you can, you should build in a savings element to your loan repayment, because credit unions, and I know this isn't about this tonight, but credit unions carry life insurance for people on their savings as well as their loans. And something that starts at €5 a week, if you can keep to that, can increase over the years. And whereas it's not something we like to think about, it is there and it is free to the member. So if you can afford to put money when you're repaying a loan, it is a good idea. But I would say the answer to that is most credit unions won't look for you to do that now.
That's great. We have one more as well from earlier on. Why would you take out a credit union loan instead of maybe going with like a smaller money lender or a local, a bank maybe or something?
Okay, so well, with the banks in general, generally speaking, most credit unions now would be slightly cheaper with payday loan companies. And unfortunately, we are seeing very active licensed money lenders. They are an absolute and utter no-no. The amount of interest that an individual would pay on the smallest of loans is absolutely horrific. So I would say in the hierarchy of where you should go, if you don't go to a credit union, and you should, absolutely the bank would be your next bet. Payday loans, and there's a couple of companies out there that will be quite aggressive offering licensed money lenders, and we see people going there who don't have to, who would get money from any institution and are paying eye-watering amounts of money. Credit cards, if they're not used right, are also very expensive. So, they are a handy tool if you can afford to pay them off. And they do, it's not that I'm a massive advocate, but they do help you focus what you're spending on, in terms of when you get your statement. But by and large, credit unions would be the cheaper way to go. And by and large would be also a listening ear in a way that you may not get with other financial institutions.
100%. If anyone else has any more questions, feel free to pop your hand up or pop something in the chat, and either Annmarie's can answer for you. Okay. I don't think anyone else has their hands up. Okay, that's fine. We can always reach out to Annmarie on Instagram and she can board on any queries, or you can always contact your local credit union as well. But yeah, thanks so much everyone for joining. Either Annmarie, do you want to say anything else before we maybe?
Thanks so much everyone for joining. It's definitely something to kind of think about all year, not just at Christmas. But it was really good to see so many people on. Thank you. And thank you for having me, credit unions. I'm such a fan.
And happy Christmas to everyone.
Yeah,
It's
happy
not
Christmas.
too early.
Hopefully it's not a stressful one, but thank you so much for joining. And yeah, thanks for joining, Annmarie and Annmarie.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Bye.
Thanks so much.